All right, welcome, my friends, to another episode here of Extreme Health Radio. Happy Monday. Hope you guys are doing great. Let me turn down the little background music here really quickly so it's not too loud. I hope you guys are doing awesome. Thanks for joining us on this live show. If this is your first time here, we do broadcast live every Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 10:45 a.m. Pacific time. So come and join us. Let me go through some of our upcoming guests here. A lot of cool people coming up on our show. Let me bring that up on the old website here so those of you on YouTube can take a look at this. A lot of cool stuff. So today's Monday, obviously. We've got Dr. Ibrahim Jaffe in the house. We're going to talk about spiritual, mental, emotional healing and how that affects our physical bodies. So this is going to be a really cool show, something I'm really into. So we got him today, and then we got Neil Miller. We'll talk with him about vaccines, and he put in the subject, are they really safe and effective? If you're a longtime listener to the show, you know the answer to that question. So that'll be a fun show, though. We have two 6-month, 7-month-old twin boys. So vaccines is a subject that's near and dear to our hearts. Then on Friday, we have Wayne Blakely. He's the owner of Living Streams Probiotics, and we're going to talk about gut health and probiotics. But the only catch with that show is that it's not going to be live. So unfortunately, Wayne does not want to be on video for some kind of bizarre reasons. He doesn't want to be on video, so we will do that one off the air. So that'll be a really cool show, though. And then we have Zirin, our friend Zirin Kenny. He's going to be back on the show talking about Lyme disease again. Oh, and then we have Dr. Gerald Smith next week. Nice. Okay, cool. We're going to have a good. Frank Schallenberger's coming up. Wow. That's really cool. A lot of cool people coming up. So if you haven't subscribed to the show, if you're on YouTube, make sure to subscribe. There's a little subscribe button near here, and then there's a little bell somewhere near, I'm told, that you can be notified when our shows go live every Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 10:45 a.m. Pacific time. So make sure to click the little bell. And let's see, is there anything else that we need to get to? Oh, yeah, this is episode 652. So if you guys want to grab the show notes, if you're listening on the iTunes podcast version that we do, just go to extremehealthradio.com/652 for the show notes, to links to the guest website and anything we talk about on today's show. And a couple different things I want to tell you about later on in the show, but I'll just sort of tease you here. Our good friend Brian Hoyer, he works with EMF. He's a building biologist. He's going to 6 cities coming up here pretty soon, and he'll go to your house and work with your house and show you and test your house for EMF. And he did that with our house. We're going to be putting a video on YouTube very soon about that. So I'll tell you what cities he's coming to and when that's all going to take place if you guys are interested in having him come out to your house. And then also Blueshield, which is a company that we promote that's in our store that works with EMF. They're having a sale, and they're going to be doing a 20% discount. So I'll tell you about that later on in today's show. But I'm really excited about this subject. This is going to be great, having Dr. Ibrahim Jaffe on the show, and he's going to talk, and we're going to talk about spiritual and emotional health and how that affects our physical health. And he is a Sufi master. He's been at this for, 40 years. He's got his medical degree, and he's worked with people with conditions like atrial fibrillation, congestive heart failure, cancer, breast, lung, and others, pulmonary diseases, asthma, COPD, thyroid, Hashimoto's, Lyme, infectious diseases, depression, anxiety, and lots of psychological diseases as well. And it's an honor to have him on the show. So let me bring him up, turn his microphone on. And he's got a really good connection here with us today. So let me turn him on. Okay, here we go. Dr. Jaffe, thank you so much for being with us today, my friend.
I'm happy to be there, Justin. Very, very happy to join you.
Yes, today? I'm doing excellent, and this is a really fun subject for me because we talk a lot. A lot of people in the health world talk a lot about the physical health, and they focus on herbs and taking right nutrition, and that's all great. But it's my contention that there's something much deeper going on with our healing and our health than just physical stuff, right?
You are 100% right. Is the herbs and everything are very valuable, incredibly important. Medicine, incredibly important. Altogether, they work well. But the real question, and you and I both know this, is why do people really get sick? And there's a reason for it. And people think it's just kind of sort of a unknown type of thing. But there's actually a science to sickness. And people get sick when they have not completed, certain emotional, psychological experiences inside themselves. And those experiences are stored very, very carefully and create illness.
Hmm. So explain that a little bit further, because that, to the average person, that's a little bit crazy, but to, our listeners who understand what we talk about, it makes a lot of sense. But explain that a little bit further. So what happens? Something energetically happens within, let's say, someone has liver cancer, if that manifests later on in life. Something's happening through some emotional trauma that leads up to that. Is that kind of the way it goes?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, the body is kind of the most advanced computer there is. Even today, all the studies show that the computer system, the body, is far faster than anything we've created yet, to date. So what we're dealing with is an organic computer of immense speed.
Hmm.
And when, the emotions, the psychology, the spirit is all tied in to the body, it's like a massive system that ties it all together.
Mm.
So when whatever happens inside of you, whatever experience, if you feel, for example, if you feel love, your heart opens and you experience love in your heart. There's a connection between the emotion of love and your heart, and everybody knows that, right?
Hmm.
So there's a connection between every emotion and every organ system. And then it goes even deeper, which is that there are specific, let's say, relation type traumas. In other words, if somebody gets, for example, a broken heart, if somebody doesn't, is not able to receive love, if someone's not able to give love, each of those things gets stored in a different way, and it creates a different disease.
Now, isn't that fascinating? So if someone, I mean, you see this all the time, right? With people who go through traumas growing up, or maybe they're abused as children, and they manifest in similar ways with these kind of issues, right?
That's 100%. I mean, this is like, for example, today they're finding that most addicts at the core level are experiencing deep levels of shame. So now we're realizing that most addictions are shame based. And then we find things like borderline personality disorder, even sometimes schizophrenia, are very often linked to sexual abuse and to post-traumatic stress from sexual abuse type trauma. So
Mm-hmm.
what we're seeing is this direct relationship between early childhood issues and the manifestation of disease later on in life.
Now, have we been able to sort of map those out? Is it a pretty consistent sort of correlation between the same types of childhood traumas, say, for example, and similar, like, let's just use liver cancer as a result or as an example here. Is there a connection that seems to follow a pattern, I should say, with certain specific traumas happening in your early life to a liver cancer? And do they always sort of, does a high percentage of those map to that?
Absolutely, 100%. So,
Wow.
yeah, it's really, that's why I say it's really a kind of a science, is that if people have specific traumas, they do map into specific organ systems. And then if that, for example, let's say that you um, are a woman who learned that if you spoke up in your household, that your father would get mad at you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what you find is that that person has what we call an expression trauma. So that if they speak up, they are going to get, their father's going to get angry at them. Their father's going to shut them down. Okay, that will map right into the thyroid. And if they sit with that and they act it out for 20 years, they will end up with Hashimoto's disease.
Yeah, I've heard about that. I've heard about how the thyroid is connected to expression and speaking your truth and, finding a home and feeling at home in the world, right?
Right, right. And same with liver. Like the liver is about, liver has many different aspects. It can be about power, so liver can be power, but it also is the part that connects to the mind. The liver controls the mind. It also controls the eyes.
Mm-hmm.
So the eye disease, the mind disease can all be tied into liver. But you see, the way I work at it is a little bit different, which is rather than trying to create like a notebook and say, okay, well, this disease is this. What I like to do is teach people to go into their own illnesses, and
Mm-hmm.
then they'll open up the map themselves and they'll find out the core within themselves.
Is that hard for someone to learn? Is that a lot for them to learn? Are people unwilling to learn all that information, you think?
I don't think it's hard. I think most people can learn it in 7 weeks. We've had people who've actually taken our 7-week foundations course and have healed congestive heart failure end stage after 7 weeks. This is considered a disease. Once you top out on it, meaning you've taken all the drugs, your ejection fraction drops below 30%, you're basically considered, you're going to be dying in the next 6 to 12 months.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something we've had people turn that around. So it's, you can do that very quickly.
Wow. And so these people that have had these sort of transformations, were they also doing other therapies or other types of cleansing, detox, physical things as well, or?
Some were and some weren't. My preference is that everybody does. I think that when we're dealing, particularly with life-threatening illnesses or, chronic illness, this type of thing, that you have to, you want to put everything in your favor. So you want to do detox for sure.
Mm-hmm.
You want to change your diet. You want to eat the foods, the superfoods, and health-related foods, and take the herbs.
Mm-hmm.
But my experience is often it's not enough. But if you get to both the psychological, emotional, and then the spiritual side of the illness, and you work on both of those, that's when you start to hit the home run and you start to see the diseases disappear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's fascinating because, like I said at the beginning, most people focus on just the food and the physical and things like that. But, when you're dealing in these sort of unseen realms and these invisible processes that are happening, whether it's at like a atomic level with photons and electrons, or just on a physical level or on a spiritual level that goes even deeper, I think when you start touching and start poking that giant in the eye, that's the root cause, right?
That's right. Exactly. And what I found, you see, I'm a Sufi teacher. Now, in Sufism, what we're working with is the spirit. So you have to add the added component, which is you've got the emotional side. What happened? Okay, let's say as a child, got liver cancer. Maybe your father was alcoholic. You're dealing with some kind of, really strong, I don't know what, abuse situation with alcoholism. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
very common in liver cancer. Okay, so then as a child, what did you do? You cowered, you got afraid, you thought your father was going to hurt you. So you have this emotional side of it. I'm afraid of anger, and I'm going to cower down, and I'm going to hide, and I'm going to get very rageful inside. So there's your psycho-emotional side of the illness, which has to be completed, meaning you've got to go out of that state of fear. But the spiritual side of it might be, what are you trying to learn spiritually, such as having compassion for your father's illness and how to contain the love and the care for your father as he's going to that type of situation.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I mean? So it's a little bit, there's a spiritual side of the illness as you go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really fascinating. We've had a number of different people on talking about recall healing and some of that work, and in that sort of line of thinking, they talk about how children will, part of the role of a child is to carry the burdens of previous generations, and we're meant to sort of honor those that come before us and bless those that come after us. And part of the role of the child is to carry those burdens to of the previous generations, and I find that to be really, really fascinating. It seems to tie in with all the work that you're doing as well. Oh no, technical snafu here. We don't have Dr. Jaffe anymore. Yeah. I don't know what happened. We're having some real technical issues these days. Were you guys on the show that we had on Friday? We had Dr. Ron Hunninghockey on the show, and same sort of issues. And it was funny because somebody said in the comments of the YouTube video, it was like Agenda 21 kind of stuff, and they were trying to shut us down. I don't know. I'd have to be sort of, someone would have to prove that to me. That sounds a little far-fetched. I can't think that our little show is getting that much traction that they would want to shut us down. But, who knows? But I think what Dr. Jaffe is talking about here is, as you can see, he's frozen here. So we're going to try to get him back. But as he's talking about here, I do think, that it is really imperative and really critical for all of us to be able to understand the role of the deeper psycho-spiritual, emotional side of disease. Because like I said, lots of podcasts and lots of people out there are talking about how it's purely physical and just do this detox, do the Andy Cutler heavy metal detox, or do some of these other things, and this will fix your problems. But so, okay, good. We got Dr. Jaffe back on the show.
All right. Very sorry. It looks like it dropped out. Okay.
No problem. Yeah. But what I was saying was, I'm not sure if you caught any of this about how it seems as though from a recall healing perspective that, a child's role is to honor and to support and carry the burdens of their mother and father. And that would make so much sense to what you're talking about.
Yeah. Well, see, that's what I've understood from Sufism as a sort of an energy healer. We work at that emotional level, and we're trying to get those traumas out and the energetic patterns out that are causing disease. But really behind it, there's that spiritual side of it. So my experience has been that when we get to the spiritual side and we bring in that level of it, and the person gets the lesson at that level, then we start to see the really difficult diseases disappear. Mm-hmm. And without the spiritual side, especially with life-threatening illness, I don't see a lot of success with it. But with the spiritual side, then you start to see success.
What do you make of people that get, or sort of, I guess it depends on what you call it, right? Do you call it a healing, or do you call it a cure, or what term you use? But what do you make of people who overcome a catastrophic disease and don't do any deeper spiritual emotional work? What do you think's going on there?
Yeah, that's interesting. Sometimes these are just gifts. I think these are gifts from the divine for, some reason. We don't know why the divine does what it does. It's its own being and its own understanding and wisdom. But sometimes people just are given the gift for whatever reason. It could be there's blessings in the family. It could be that something's trying to be demonstrated to people or to existence through that healing. Mm-hmm. It could be that person just needs to see that they're cared about. I think, all those reasons might be some of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is really fascinating because there's so many anomalies that happen on either side of the equation when someone either passes on or somebody does get a healing or doesn't get a healing. And, it seems to me that whenever you are dealing with a condition, it's always there, right, to teach you something and to allow you to grow and to get to the root cause, right? I mean, that's what it's all there for, right?
Yeah, you got it. The root cause, again, we have to kind of go back and think about life. What are we really doing here? Most people would say, we're trying to raise family, have a good life, live, hopefully a good life. But there's the other side of it, which is spiritually, what are we really doing here? And spiritually, what we're really doing is trying to learn the lessons our soul needs to come back to the oneness that we came from so that we can return home. Mm-hmm. So, that means we've got to learn the lessons of things like compassion and mercy and wisdom and love and peace and all those type of things. And that's what the spirit eats those things. The spirit learns in that way. So if we're really going to heal, we've got to get the spiritual teaching along with the processing of the psycho-emotional stuff, and the support of all the herbs and everything else. And then we have the best shot of really handling our diseases. And I'm talking about, let me give you an example of, this was a girl who had glioblastoma. She was 8 years old, I think it was. And glioblastoma is considered pretty much untreatable. She was doing the chemo and everything. Nothing worked. And she was dying. She was sleeping about 23 hours a day. And they couldn't rouse her. And that's when they called me. And we began working with her. And what we found was that the issue of psycho-emotional side was that her parents were getting divorced and that they were basically fighting really strongly, and the child couldn't handle what was going on within the parents. But spiritually, what we started to see was the child was trying to learn mercy and trying to learn compassion for both parents. And once the child got it, and we were able to teach that to the child, and we were able to get the parents to stop fighting and to claim, basically to heal the whole triangle of the family. Mm. Within about 4 sessions, the girl woke up and went back to school, and her symptoms completely disappeared.
Now, how did you work with a girl who was unconscious like that?
Well, there are ways to do it. In this case, we were working with the mother. In other words, the mother was accessing the issues with the child. So essentially, we were working through the mother. The mother would
Hmm.
say, okay, I know my child has this issue. The mother would kind of feel into the child, and then we'd start working with clearing the mother. And through clearing the mother, we were able to clear the child.
Now, how important is it, do you think? In this case, it's really kind of bizarre because the child is not sort of conscious in the way that we're used to that. So, when you're working with someone, how important is it for them to really believe the things that you're saying? Because I would imagine that the mom, unless she was open, she'd probably think you're crazy talking about all these things, right?
I don't. I think this was a very open mom, honestly. So she was easy to work with.
Okay.
So it wasn't that case. And if people really don't believe it, if you say no inside, you have
Hmm.
free will. So what you believe ultimately is going to kind of open or close the gate. You know, so your belief system has a lot to do with it. You have to trust. You have to try it. And if you open and you trust and you try it, in a lot of cases, unfortunately, the people who come to me are usually at the end of the road.
Hmm.
They're at the point where they're saying, I have no other choice. I have to trust.
Hmm.
Be nice if we could catch them earlier, but unfortunately, that's often the case.
Hmm. Do you think there's any sort of subconscious role here with regards to playing, doing all of this? Like, let's say, for example, like you were just saying, that it's really important to give your body the best shot. David Wolf calls it stacking the odds in your favor and doing everything you can. But subconsciously, do you think that there is, because ultimately, all physical healing trickles down from the spiritual emotional side, in my opinion. That's the root cause of it all. But if you're doing that kind of work, like the kind of work you do, or people like you do, and you're also doing physical things, can it not be said that you don't necessarily trust the power in the spiritual emotional? Otherwise, why would you be doing physical things as well?
That's I mean, people could argue that. I mean, isn't it? There's what's that one church that actually practices exactly that? You just believe in God, and and do your practices, and you either heal or you die.
That's it.
And
Yep.
right, I don't agree with that myself. I
Hmm.
really don't, because the truth of the matter is that most people, their faith is not that strong yet.
Hmm.
Um, their beliefs are not that strong yet. They need support. And some of these diseases are really insidious. I mean, they're really deep inside there, and you need support. That's why, as a physician, I'm not against using, allopathic medicines, to support somebody. For example, let's say you have high blood pressure, and
Hmm.
you have your blood pressure is 200 over 140.
Hmm.
You have a very, very high chance of having a stroke.
Hmm.
Okay. And if, of course, you get the stroke, there's a good chance you're either going to die or you're going to be paralyzed for life.
Hmm.
So, some of these people would say, just trust in God, or trust in, and you believe that you can heal it, and you can heal it. So we had a guy in Sedona who went to a church that was teaching that, and they're right. You can heal it that way. So he went off his medicines. His blood pressure spiked to 220 over whatever. And the next day they found him dead, in the canyon outside of Sedona.
Mm.
So, the teaching for me was, why, while he was learning, this man did not know how to develop his beliefs. His faith in God was not strong enough, to take him off his medicine and to say, hey, you know what, you can believe this, is crazy. He was not ready for that situation. He needed to stay on his meds, develop his beliefs, slowly titrate his medicines down. As his beliefs got stronger, his faith got stronger. I'm sure that they were right. He would have had success, but you don't do it cold turkey like that.
Hmm. I like that. I like that way of looking at it, because, like you said, it's almost like a belief is almost like you're saying, weaning off a medication. It's really, really strong to develop a strong belief system and a core character of what you're here and what you're doing and why this is happening. And then as you develop that, then you can also start working on tapering off certain things and, going on, herbs and things. And that
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, we have to be careful. I mean, it's there's I'm very spiritual. I'm a Sufi. I believe in spirituality. tremendously.
Mm-hmm.
But, there's caution and reason. Another example of this is this woman who was attending a channeling workshop, and she was learning to channel some of the Tibetan masters. And the head channel, who was a very well-known channel and psychic, said, you're hitting resistance to, channeling these people. So she started developing a lot of pain in her belly. And the channeling was, you're developing resistance. And that may be the case. She might have been. But as the pain got worse and worse, eventually they called me on Sunday morning of the workshop, and they said, the man said, my wife is, on the floor in so much pain. What's going on? So we ended up sending her up to the hospital. And what had happened was, while she was developing her resistance, she apparently had an ectopic pregnancy that had ruptured the fallopian tube. And she almost bled to death, while they were saying that she was, resisting the channeling. What was really happening was she was bleeding to death. And she should have been in the hospital 24 hours before. We almost lost her.
Wow.
So, that's why I'm saying it's, they may have been right. There might have been resistance, and it all might have been happening at the same time. I'm not saying that's wrong, but you've got to balance your spiritual side
Mm-hmm.
with, solid, careful medical, or at least, solid health care at some level before you make a decision like that.
Yeah, it's interesting because you could look at it even deeper and say that maybe it's possible that a woman like that manifested a situation like that so that she could learn that she does need to go to the hospital. It's like, you don't know.
Yeah, exactly. What's the real reason? Maybe you're right. Maybe she was so anti-medicine that she was creating the whole thing herself as a teaching. You're 100% right.
Yeah, it's fascinating because, myself, I am as much of a natural person as you could ever get. I'm always doing herbs and natural remedies and things like that. And what got me into doing this radio show and doing this whole change of career for me was my mom was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma in 1995. And she had developed this, we believe now, as a result of, at least on a physical level, she was spraying our backyard routinely with Roundup. And so that's known to cause lymphomas and lymphatic cancers. And so, anyway, that got me into this. But she had subsequently multiple rounds of chemotherapy and radiation and surgeries, and now she's dealing with a breast cancer, and she's doing chemotherapy and radiation. And she's still here 24 years later, and she's seemingly strong. And of anything, things should point me to the allopathic model, right?
Right. Well, that's why I say, this polarization, allopathic, spiritual, homeopathic, Ayurvedic, you can't do allopathic, in my opinion, is nonsense. They're all pieces of the puzzle. The doctor of the future needs to figure out which piece works the best and have the courage to join the pieces together in unity. It's not, there are times you need allopathic. There's no doubt about it. There's times Ayurvedic works, times homeopathic works, times spiritual works. But you know what? You put them all together, that's your best shot for the person. If you cut half of it out and you say, well, I can't do Ayurvedic because I'm doing homeopathic, what if the Ayurvedic really has the answer for you and you're shutting it out because of some type of belief system? It doesn't make any sense.
Mm-hmm. I completely agree. Yeah. And maybe that's part of the lesson as well, to be holistic and integrative and all of that. And so I hope you guys are enjoying the show. We're going to take a little bit of a break right now. If you guys have any questions for Dr. Jaffe in the YouTube chat, do me a favor. And after the break, what I'll do is I'll read the questions, but type them in all caps. I see a lot of really cool people here, a lot of return people. This is awesome. So make sure to type the questions in all caps, and that will give me the best chance of asking Dr. Jaffe your question when we come back from the break. And I do apologize. We had a little mix-up starting the show. I had the wrong Dr. Jaffe, and I'm really excited that we got to talk to Dr. Ibrahim Jaffe today. So this is really cool. I put the wrong photo up, and I do apologize for that. So we'll change that after the show. So Really, really cool show. This is episode 652. So if you guys want to grab the show notes, anything like that, the sponsors or links of any kind, just go to extremehealthradio.com/652. And I wanted to tell you guys about one of the things that we talk a lot about is light, water, and magnetism on our show. And from a sort of physics perspective that sort of dances in between the physical and the spiritual, that is how biophotons and light and non-native EMF affect electrons in our body and ultimately the mitochondria, and from that, genetic expression. And one of the cool ways that we are playing with in our home is sleeping on this magnetic mattress pad. It's really, really cool. There's been a lot of research on this Magnetico mattress pad. We did a whole show with Dr. Dean Bonley, who's a developer of this thing. And the thing weighs like, I think it's about 100 pounds or something. And there's 1,200 magnets on this thing. And we sleep on ours. We only have the intermediate version. I forget what it's called, but there's this super sleep system, which is 20 Gauss. And we're going to get that and sort of upgrade from that really, really soon. But magnetism on the earth has been decreasing, scientists are now saying. And a lot of people are now saying that it's weakened over 80% in the last 4,000 years. And ultimately, it's magnetism that affects our electrons and how they spin and photons in the body. And this is all done by magnetism. There's a really cool quote by Tesla who says, if you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. Pretty cool quote. But here's a little picture of Kate sitting on ours when we first installed it in our room. And there she is pregnant there. This was about a year ago, I'd say. And our kids have been sleeping on this magnetic mattress pad. And it's really, really a tremendous piece of equipment. And one of the reasons why I like it, it says here there's 2,000 magnets in each pad. That's crazy, right? So one of the reasons why I like this thing is that it enhances and utilizes time to your benefit, right? We're all lacking time. We don't have time to do things. And what's really cool is that you can upgrade your sleep. So you're going to sleep on a bed anyway, right? So why not improve the quality of your sleep and improve the magnetism that you're bathing in? And one of the things I also like about it too is recently, you guys probably know, they recently installed a 5G tower next to our neighborhood, and not a big fan of that. But what's cool about bathing your body and in a magnetic field like this is it helps to push that off. So this is a really, really cool thing. So if you guys want to listen to the show that we did with Dr. Dean Bonley, I recommend it. It's a really cool show. And also, if you guys want to pick up one of these magnetic mattress pads, they were kind enough to give all of our listeners a 10% off discount code. So if you type in EHR10, you'll get 10% off of your order. So I hope you guys check that out. And the other thing I wanted to tell you guys about was this Relax Far Infrared Sauna. This is something that I've been doing every day for, at least 6 years. Probably in the last 6 months since our kids were born, I've only been able to get to it about 3 times a week, I'd say. But before that, it was easy 6 times a week. And I love this thing. Your head sits out of it. So from an Ayurvedic perspective, it's really great because from their method of healing, it's really not ideal to heat up the core temperature of your head. And that's one of the reasons why I like it. And the other reason, too, is that when I'm sitting in here, I can watch documentaries, I can watch interviews, I can learn and grow. It's really, really great. So this thing uses a far infrared heat to penetrate deep into your tissues. And what that does is it oscillates fat cells, and it allows those fat cells to oscillate at very high frequencies, which squeezes out toxins and chemicals and things, environmental exposures to things like that we're exposed to on a regular basis. I was just reading something recently that from, I think it was the early 1960s, there's been over 60,000 chemicals introduced into our environment. And some people say even more than that. Dr. Hunninghake on Friday said it's more than that. But my God, 60,000 chemicals. And where are these things storing themselves, right? So what I like to do is I like to jump on the rebounder and then jump right in the sauna. It's a really great 1-2 combo. So if you guys are interested in that, you can go to, if you're watching on YouTube, there's a link to both the Magnetico mattress pad and the Relax Far Infrared Sauna. You can check that out in the description below. If you're listening on iTunes or Stitcher or as a podcast, audio podcast, there'll be links to both of these things at extremehealthradio.com. Let me get this correct. /652. That's today's episode number. So I want to ask Dr. Jaffe when we come back here. Let me bring this back over. I'm really curious about how he got started, because he said he's a Sufi healer. But you look at his MD or his thing, he's got MD on his name. So before we ask him about that, though, let me just pop on over. Actually, let me ask him about that, because that's really fascinating to me. And while he's talking about that, I'll get some listener questions from the chat room. So Doc, how did you, as a medical doctor, get involved in all of this crazy spiritual, emotional side to life? How did you get started on all of this?
I love your questions, Justin. That's great. I was in my residency, and I was working with a girl with end-stage liver failure. She was 17 years old. She was a Jewish girl.
Mm-hmm.
And they had something going on with the academy she was at. I think they had only a couple hundred kids there, and they had a bunch of deaths that year. So all these kids were dying for no reason, and they weren't sure what was happening. So this 17-year-old ended up with me in the ICU, and the traditional medicine, this is 1983, wasn't working. So the rabbis actually called to Jerusalem. They spoke with the head rabbi in Jerusalem, and he went into the Talmud, which is an ancient Jewish text, and they found a treatment for what they were calling yellow hepatitis or yellow liver disease, which is what she had. Her body was yellow, and an edematous, she was swollen. So the disease treatment was, you took these doves, you get a box of doves, and you would essentially clean the feathers off of its belly, and then you would place its belly on the girl's belly. And if the sort of disease would transmute out, the dove would die.
Oh.
So they invited, it was amazing this day. They had about 20 Orthodox Jewish rabbis showed up with this massive box of doves, like 30, 40 doves. I don't know how many.
Oh my gosh.
And they come into the ICU, which was big deal. And they started putting the doves. They did a bunch of prayers, and they put the dove on the girl's belly. And sure enough, within, I would say, 1.5 seconds, the dove took one deep breath, shuddered, and died on her belly. So they then went through the next dove. It took about 15 seconds. The next one took about 2 minutes. And, they went through a box of, they got up to 18 doves, which took about 3 hours. At that point, all of her vital signs, everything returned to normal. She was starting to come back to complete health, from according to the vital signs. All the medications were stopped. And then, of course, the doctors came in and stopped it because they were afraid of, silicosis in the ICU, and they stopped it. And then shortly, the next day she died. But the change was so powerful that I saw that I realized that there were sort of traditional, non-conventional forms of healing out there that were far more powerful than medicine. And that's what I decided. So I completed up my residency and then spent the next, I don't know how many years, 10, 15 years traveling around the world studying those types of healing, because I wanted to understand sort of how healing really worked and try to get a unified system of understanding.
Wow.
That's how it came about.
Gosh, what a story. What a crazy, crazy story. It must have been something where you had it within you, right, as a conscious desire to expand your knowledge base, probably not knowing it before this experience, but that was part of your soul's journey to come into this kind of thing and sort of, I guess, maybe even manifest a situation like that so that you could do that, right?
Yeah, you got it. I mean, I was always interested in sort of the subtle, reality of healing. I wanted to understand, could we find illness, in the aura before it manifests? And if we treated it before it came in, would we have a better success in healing, which turned out to be true. But it really wasn't until I met the Sufi master that I studied with that I really finally sort of understood that what I believe to be kind of the whole system of how healing works, which is, from the God down, why does disease actually come into being? Why was it created? Why is it here? What do we do with it? How do we heal with it? And what's really being asked through it? So that's what I've ended up with after 35 years of doing this.
There's a really interesting guy. I think he recently passed on. I think his name was Dr. John Sarno out of New York, somewhere in New York. And he was he worked with a lot of people with sciatica and back pain. And he wrote a really interesting book years ago called Healing Back Pain. And what he did was he worked with patients who had excruciating back pain, people who couldn't even stand up, people who couldn't move, tremendous amounts of pain. And he would have them do some exercises, some writings, and write letters to their parents and write letters to their back pain and these types of things. And here's the interesting thing about it is that it doesn't really fascinate me that these people essentially were cured. What's interesting to me is that when you did an x-ray after they were allegedly cured, their x-rays in their spine would show the same inflammation, the same compressed discs, the same nerve endings that look like they should be firing, but they're not. So on a physical level, nothing changed, but on a separate physical level, they were able to be basically cured, even though they had the pathology still in their body. And I'm wondering, in some of the cases that you've seen, has this happened where, like, you know how they say we create cancer cells in our body all the time, but only sometimes you feel it and our body overcomes it? In your experience, have you seen people that have overcome things, but they still have the condition, but their lives are just completely turned around?
Yeah, I mean, I have seen that. It's not the usual thing. I mean, usually what we see is that the people, do the work you said, writing the letters or whatever they're doing, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then slowly the disease begins to attrition out. So like the tumor will slowly shrink, or, the inflammation slowly goes down, or the pain slowly disappears. So usually we see it more like that.
Mm-hmm.
Once in a while, the disease stays in there, like the tumor will just sit there, kind of goes to sleep. It's like it doesn't grow, it doesn't change. And yet they get better. All the symptoms disappear. And I think that's what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's fascinating stuff, all this spiritual, physical, emotional. I promised the great people in the chat room that we would ask their questions. So let me hop on over to there and sort of bounce around a little bit. A lot of great people: Rebecca, Adinda, Linda, Eric, Simply Me, Laura. A lot of really cool people in here. Thanks, guys, for joining us. Let me scroll down and find the first question that's in all caps. Okay, this one's from Tara. She says, ask Dr. Jaffe if he would do an intuitive reading for you. He is a medical intuitive. So maybe, I'm not sure if Tara's asking if you would do one, Dr. Jaffe, for me, but would you do one for people? Do people work with you individually, and can you do that for people?
Yeah, I can do it, and that's something we do a lot of, but I wouldn't do it on the air. I don't think that's the kind of thing you would do on the air.
Right.
But I'm happy if people want to, call my office with it. I'm happy to set up appointments. And I do have a whole group of healers, I call them master healers, who've been trained, and they'd be happy to work with you as well. So cool. There's lots of people that can work with you if you want.
That's awesome. Okay. Yeah, cool. Yeah. Simply Me, Laura says, how does a session with Dr. Jaffe work? Typically, how long does it take for someone to come, or how long does it last? How long does it take for someone to come to healing with him? Does he work more on emotional healing or psychological healing as well?
All the above, and if you do healings with me or with the staff or the healers, we're going to cross all those lines. We're going to look at emotions. We're going to look at your belief systems. We're going to look at your spiritual teachings, and we're also going to look at your spiritual path, meaning that, all paths are good, but you have to be deeply, sincerely involved, especially with, strong disease, life-threatening disease. You need that connection. Like, you can be Christian, but not really have the connection to God, or Jewish or Muslim. It doesn't matter. But whatever your path is, that it has to be sincere. The connection has to be strong, and you have to be, in the process of deepening that connection to have healing, as particularly of really serious disease. The lighter diseases, that may not be as necessary, mm-hmm. but for life-threatening, I think you do need it.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Mark, if you could re-ask your question, I'm not really sure exactly what you're asking, and I think English is your second language. So, yeah, because you said, "What is looking?" If you look from an almost death experience, so I'm not really sure exactly. If you could reword that, that would be awesome. I'd appreciate that. B Light says, "How does our spiritual and energetic state affect others near us and/or around us?" Or on the planet? Are we supposed to be in a symbiotic relationship with all creation and each other? Good question.
Yeah, amazing question.
Yeah.
That's that's a great question. Well, we're energy beings. We're spirits and bodies. So our energy body, if you will, is constantly affecting and touching every other energy body around us. And a lot of people think about the soul, or the heart. They say, how big is the soul? Well, the soul probably runs somewhere between 2 and 5 miles in diameter as a basic light body. So if you think about like LA or something, where you've got, God knows how many people, in one area, Marina Del Rey or downtown LA or something, and you've got these 2 mile diameter souls, you can get a sense of how deeply we're swimming in other people's realities. And of course, we are picking up their thoughts. And if people have very strong, like, emotional charges, they can deeply affect us. So,
Mm-hmm.
we are going to be affected by those things.
Mm-hmm. It's such a weird concept, but I sort of experienced this myself when my wife and I were living in our previous place. We had our let's see, they weren't our neighbors, they're our landlords living below us, and they would argue and fight every night as a married couple, and they would argue and fight, and we would be in our house, in any part of the house, and we could hear them screaming and yelling at each other over politics and all this kind of stuff, and it was just got to the point where it got too much. And
Yeah.
part of our struggle, and this might be indicative of some of the things our listeners are going through as well, but part of our struggle was we could feel that, just like you were just saying, we could feel that in our energetic body. We could feel that negative energy near and close to us. The struggle that we had was, shouldn't we be able to do spiritual exercises that would allow us to sort of offset that or off-put that so that it doesn't affect us? And then the third struggle we had as a result of thinking that thought was, do we want to live in a place where we have to work so hard to suppress negative energy from affecting us? So it's all kind of a weird balance, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Those are the big questions. I mean, the bottom line is, yeah, there are practices that can, help, help you. But the first thing is, if people have free will. So the people who are fighting, they have the free will to fight.
Mm-hmm.
And you have the free will to live next door to them or not.
Mm.
And if you choose to live there, then yeah, you have to take on that situation. You have to develop, some kind of shielding so that you're not picking up the rage and the anger and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you do that. But, my experience is that we're all stressed out already. We're all working, we're all tired. When I come home at night and I've been working with people all day long, the last thing I want to do is put up shields to protect my house,
Right.
from some neighbor. I want to come home and rest,
Yeah.
get nurture, you know.
That's true.
So you got to think about those things.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Your idea of how far did you say from an energetic light body that a soul could be in proximity, its distance?
Like 2 to 5 miles. 2 to 5 miles.
Wow.
Soul's big. The soul is big.
Man.
It's like a cone. It comes down. Around your body. You have what people talk about, the light bodies of the soul and this type of thing. But the soul kind of goes off the body and it gets gigantic. And the souls are full of light, and and they do interface. So when you live in a city, particularly, like I live out in the country, I have about 5 miles of nothing around me, because when I come home from healing or teaching, I just need that pure space to kind of chill in. I don't want to have any psychic disturbance around me, because I want that space to kind of wash through me. I live on a place with springs. It's a very holy ground.
Oh.
So all the time, those springs are washing me and sort of cleaning my energy system. So, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I've heard good things with that regard with springs and how they're able to bring good energies to you and things.
Yeah, anytime you have a spring, anytime you have a natural spring on your property, you've got holy energy. And then if you have any kind of minerals, then you also get the mineral energy. Like in my property, we have both crystals and we have the springs. We have 7 springs on our property, and we have a creek that cut through a crystal bed. So we have very, very ancient crystals that go on the property.
My
And
goodness.
it's amazing, when you're on the property, you just heal from being in that presence.
Jeez,
So,
I'm jealous, Doc. I want to live where you live.
well, come on out. So,
Oh man,
um,
what state are you in? Where are you able to find all this great?
I'm in Napa Valley.
Okay.
I'm in Napa, but you can
Wow.
find it. I mean, there's places. I don't know. I'm not sure where you're at, but every you know there I my experience is all over the world. There are sacred places. There's never a lack of sacred places. We just have to find them and go
Yeah, I'm
sit in them.
curious. Did you intuitively pick the place and then find there were springs and crystals there, or other way around?
I think both my wife and I were looking, whenever we purchase property, we're always looking for that sacred factor. It's like we want the land to be holy, and we want to be in holy property. So, over the years, what we found is that, springs are one of the key ways you can know. So, whenever we find an area that has natural mineral springs or hot springs or something like that, we're pretty sure we're in a holy area,
Mm.
and then you start to look at are there minerals, as well. And if you get them both together, you're going to do really well.
Wow, that sounds like an awesome spot. We're just down south of you in South Orange County, about an hour south of LA. And speaking of LA, you're going to be at the Conscious Life Expo, and I'm curious if you can touch a little bit about that. But how do you go from where you are there in a really sacred place where it's very quiet and peaceful? What are some things our listeners can do to sort of protect themselves if they have to go do a meeting at a high rise office and it stresses them out, or they live in a city, or these types of things?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the bottom line is you have to connect to spirit in some way,
Hmm.
and there are practices that connect you, and there are, things that connect you. Like you could put, amethyst or crystals around you. They're very helpful. There are certain plants, sage and sweet grass, things like that. They can help cleanse you. So you can, you can light those, and the smoke from that will pull out, whatever you picked up in your energy field, your aura. And then of course the highest level is really your spiritual connection. If you keep a solid connection to God, the angels, to spirit, however you want to look at it, and you hold that, very little negativity can come in, because it's like when there's light, there's no shadows. So as
Hmm.
long as you hold that light strong, you'll push the shadows out. But for that, you've got to do some kind of spiritual practice to get there.
Hmm. Yeah, good lead into this question from the chat room. I think it was, let me go back and see if I can find it. I think it was somebody named Tara who's listening. I think, yeah, Tara, she wants to know, like, what's your daily practice? Like, what do you do?
Well, I do what's called the remembrance. This is Sufi practice. So in Sufism, we say there are 99 names of God. Okay, so we're using names like Ar-Rahman, which is compassion. And then there are names of God itself, so you can pull up any name of God that has an A in it, an
Hmm.
ah sound will pull it in. So in Sufism we might use Allah, but you could use Father, for example. If are Christian, you could use Hashem if you're Jewish, things
Hmm.
like this. So as long as it's got the A in there, and it's essentially focusing on divinity, then you repeat that name for a minimum of 20 minutes. Hours better. And as you're calling to God, what happens is this flame of light, of beautiful light, not like usually it can be white or gold or clear or something, profound, is sent down from the higher levels, the divine,
Hmm.
and it runs through your system, and it washes away, any place inside of you where you have doubt or fear or confusion, or where you've let negativity, come into you.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you do those practices and you do that connection, and I used to do, Buddhist Vipassana meditation. I did it for 20 years,
Mm-hmm.
and it was very, very powerful for me. But when I discovered the Sufi practice and I brought in that divine light, everything in my consciousness exploded. That was the missing piece for me. I needed to bring conscious awareness with divinity together. And that's when I had all the best effects and healing.
So you're looking at like a meditation practice, 20 minutes or an hour a day where you sort of repeat these mantras, right?
Yeah, you repeat the mantras and you do it. You want to do it consciously, and we
Mm-hmm.
call it dhikr. So you would do like a dhikr. You might repeat Allah, over and over again. You might repeat Ya Rahman, compassion over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
And you're waiting. What will happen at some point, you'll actually feel like a waterfall of light begins. It starts to come down.
Mm-hmm.
And once that comes down, you connect it into your heart. Your heart sort of imbibes it. And once the imbibing happens, and that's when it's literally like spirit picks you up and starts to move you. You surrender, and now you're in the hands of spirit. You go where spirit takes you.
It's so interesting. It seems as though I grew up. I didn't really grow up this way, but I sort of pursued this path when I was in my early high school days of just biblical Christianity and reading and learning and stuff. And I remember what they were talking about was in the Bible in Genesis where it says, "And God said, let there be light." They would often make the connection between the idea that obviously God existed before light, but what they were saying was God said some words and then light appeared. So then they're saying that sound and frequency and vibration, light is created from that. And I find it interesting that you say these mantras during your thing because essentially it's a vibratory auditory response that you're creating within your body to connect, right, with that sort of light, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, when you create sound vibration, particularly sacred sound, so sacred sound is things like, for example, if you want peace, when you say peace, you have a p,
Mm-hmm.
what kind of peace comes with p? P breaks. It's a breaking energy. It doesn't bring
Mm-hmm.
peace.
Mm-hmm.
But if you bring in more of a like salam or shalom or shante, all of a sudden you can actually feel that those letters, the sound vibration captures that attribute of peace, and the light of peace is then triggered and it comes into your being. So you're 100% right. The sound vibrations are used to invoke the divine attributes, and then the divine attributes open into, sort of absorbing that into our system so
Mm-hmm.
that we can experience it.
Now, what kind of meditation did you say that you had been doing previous to this for about 20 years? What kind was that?
I did Vipassana. Vipassana, is a Buddhist meditation. You sit, you simply watch your breath. So I would sit and I'd watch your breath. The
That's right.
concept is you're trying to get no mind. You want to be able to go beyond your mind and sit in a state of emptiness. And for me, I got to a point I could sit for 2 hours with no thought, which is considered very good, but it wasn't doing enough for me. I was stuck. I couldn't get past. I would sit in the emptiness, but there was something missing. But when I brought in these divine sounds, that emptiness exploded into consciousness and opened up all these new worlds for me that I knew that's what I'd been looking for the whole time, but I needed that divine light to make it happen.
So interesting. There's a listener question, Megan Lynn, in the chat room, and she says she's a colon hydrotherapist. And it's interesting because when you work in that line of work, there's obvious ties to emotional and, energies and people, what they're trying to release physically from their bodies. And she says here that she has clients with super heavy energy traumas. And sometimes, probably like you, she finds herself exhausted after a certain client or maybe at the end of the day. And she wants to know, how can she protect herself from that? And there's probably a lot of people that feel this way in different lines of work. What would you suggest for people?
Well, one of the attributes you could use, names of God, is Yah Hafiz, Hafeez, Hafiz. And Hafiz will protect you from, what we call malakut energies. Malakut are sort of the lower, what Westerners, we call astral, sort of the astral dimension. It blocks kind of astral, emotional, heavy energies that people store, particularly, in the belly is like where most people stick the unresolved emotions from their childhood. So belly is a major problem for most people. So Hafiz will help you, to literally block those energies from coming into you, and it will also clean it out. It will help you clean it out, but you'll have to recite it for, maybe 5-10 minutes, before or after you do your colon hydrotherapy. And then watch what happens. You'll see this very pure white light comes in. It'll begin to clean all the shadows, all that pain out of you, and you should feel better.
Interesting. There's a interesting question here that I wanted to ask you, and this is from the Nitap. It says here on YouTube in the chat, hello, I'm looking for healing for, now I can't even say this. You might know what this is, Doc. I think it's some kind of dye or contrast that people get from MRIs. Gadolinium. And he or she says, I understand there's none in the United States. And when I look this up, it says on Google, gadolinium is an MRI contrast media agent, a chemical substance used in magnetic resonance imaging when injected into the body. So it looks like maybe this person had an MRI and they got somehow infected with the dye and the contrast. And have you ever seen weird kind of cases like that?
Well, I mean, I haven't seen it with MRI contrast. I mean, we used to work a lot with Agent Orange people that had been, they dropped Agent Orange on the Vietnam vets, and they would come back with all sorts of illnesses from Agent Orange. And, nobody knew how to get rid of it. What we found was that, again, it was often emotionally held in place. So once they would get rid of sort of their traumas, of being out in the field and being shot at and bombed, and help them walk through it, a lot of the symptoms would disappear. So, my gut instinct, I would not know how to detox that, using herbs or something. But from an energy point of view, I would say that there's something deep in your consciousness, or the consciousness of this person, where they are somehow traumatized through that MRI experience, and they're locking it in themselves. MRIs can be extremely claustrophobic. People get very frightened with MRIs. So it might be that something happened there, or that, they were afraid of the MRI is going to find that I've got cancer or something. So they're holding really tightly. So they may be actually holding the dye in the system themselves. And if they could release that, the dye might come out.
And it's an interesting idea, sort of turning the whole situation on its head, the idea that perhaps we would manifest something like that, because let's say there is no sort of known way to detox this stuff out. What if this person created a situation, because it says here she's looking for a remedy for this. So as you continue to look for a healing, eventually you're going to find it, right, Doc? Don't you think?
Yeah, I think anything can be healed. I really do. Well, let me say, unless for some reason God has decided this is the person's time. If that's the case, that was the case with me and my first wife. She came to me at one point. She said, Ibrahim, I'm done. And, she was 45. I said, what do you mean you're done? She said, I have lived the most adventuresome life I've ever lived. I've done everything I want to do. I'm finished. I'm ready to go. Wow. And I said, well, we got 2 kids, they're young. I said, don't you want to be with the kids? She said, I feel like you can take care of them. I feel ready to go. I want to leave. 2 years later, she developed cancer. And she said, I don't want healing. I don't want change. I'm ready. I know this is my time. Let me die. And that's what she did. And she died happily. And a matter of fact, in her death process, she actually reached enlightenment. She reached enlightenment during the last 3 days of her death process. She crossed into it. And then she transitioned in a very, very holy space. So that's why I say sometimes we're destined to die. Sometimes we want to die. In those cases, you go. But if that's not the case, I think most diseases can be healed.
I agree. Completely agree. So Doc, tell people a little bit about, you're going to be going down to the Conscious Life Expo. That's in LA coming up, right? Is that?
Yeah, that's in LA in February. I think it's the last week of February. You probably have the dates there. And I'll be teaching on medical spiritual healing. I have a class on it. I'll be doing a panel with some other healers on Sunday night. And then on Monday, we're doing a 2-hour workshop just to kind of deepen people's understanding if you have personal Q&A. If you have diseases yourself and you want to get a sense of maybe why you're sick and what you could do about it, that in that course we'll talk about those things for you. So, come on down. It's a great expo. I know the people who are putting it on, and it's really the best expo in the United States at this time. And I think everybody should go check it out. It's really something special.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, right? Because they have a lot of different people from different perspectives. They have a handful of health people, a handful of people that look into sort of more esoteric stuff, and spiritual people like yourself, and they kind of cover the gamut, don't they?
They do. Yeah, it's all there. Everybody's there. They've got one of my favorite booths. They've got somebody with herbs from all over the world that you never heard of before.
Yeah,
I love that. And then you have people like me who are busy saying, look inside yourself and connect to God, and you can do it. So we're all there.
That's so cool. So if someone wants to learn more about the work that you do, and maybe going further with your ideas about Sufism and things, like, where would be a good place to start, do you think?
Okay, if you go to Dr. Jaffe, M.D., DrJaffeMD.com/extreme health, that will connect you. We have a giveaway for your show, which is a number of lectures I've done about learning about the principles of healing and how to apply them. There's about 6 or 7 lectures in there. If you want sessions, you can click on a session tab. We have sessions with me or with the master healers are available. And cool. There's also all sorts of workshops, including our university, which is our 1 year or 2 year program to really learn this process. I say, teach a man to fish, he never goes hungry. That's our teaching them to fish process.
That's cool. I didn't know you guys were going to do this. So it says here, the nature of divine presence in his healing process, understanding the world of the heart and the MSH process, how personal will and self-direction cause disease, how the beauty of divine names heals the body and soul, the program, what you will learn in year 1, and celebration of joy and life in the healing process. This is pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are really just very, short. I think with the 30 to 60-minute lectures, each one. They will teach you so much if you listen about them, you start applying them. And then on top of that, again, there's, really this deep Sufi teachings are coming through. We're not trying to convert anybody to Sufism, but we want to teach you whatever your tradition is to learn how to go deeper within it. And of course, if you want to learn Sufism, you're welcome. We'd love to have you. But it's really an open door for everybody, because I really think that this is the time we need to balance materialism and healing with spiritual. We need them both.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, Doc. I totally agree. And I think that there's an issue with people who, listen to our show, and it's kind of a gut reaction. And I feel like it's pretty kind of a human response, is that, we're sort of disgusted with the medical model and realize that this hasn't helped us, and it only toxifies people's bodies, and then they kind of reject all of that and sort of rebel against it and go to the natural model, which is what we promote. But then, like you said earlier, that there's actually, there's peace and balance in both models, right?
Yeah, you need them both. Why I call it medical spiritual healing comes from, of course, I'm a physician, but so many times in spiritual processes, the people forget the medical, and they actually create a lot of danger for themselves because they're doing things that they just shouldn't do, like going off their high blood pressure medicine when they should be controlling it and slowly titrating down their healing process. Or people who are schizophrenics, they go off their antipsychotics or their antidepressants, thinking they can do it, and they're not ready. And then the disease comes back, and then, we're dealing with having to, work in the ER with them because of what happened. So I'm very much against that. I really think we got to be safe. I think we're here to be safe, and then work spiritually, put them together.
I like that. Integrative, holistic, bringing all the pieces that we have available to us, whether it's against your sort of formal training or whether it's against your ideologies, being able to bring that in and accept it, right? I think that's huge.
That's right. And it's across the board. I mean, really, everybody needs, really, the medical system, allopathic system, is the best diagnostic protective system there is right now, in my opinion. If somebody has a heart attack, you want to be in the ER. If somebody has, you know, an aneurysm, you know, you don't want to be giving them homeopathy. You want them in the ER. You want them getting surgery. You know, you want to take care of that on the spot, because half the time, if they go the other route, they're going to die. And if they get the surgery, they're going to live. So you want to treat medically. It's important. But once they're stabilized, now you've got to start working at really healing the disease. You know, medicine doesn't really heal. What it does is it essentially stabilizes or cuts out the disease or does something like that. But that's not really healing. Healing is getting to the roots and getting the roots out. That's what we have to really do.
Mm-hmm. I agree, Doc. Well, thank you so much for being on. And you know, tell Donna I apologize for mixing up the names at the beginning, but we worked through it, and I think it worked out great. And it was awesome to have you on.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. I think you're doing, your understandings are very rare. So I get interviewed a lot, and I've been very impressed by how much you've put together. So thank you for having me on your show.
You're so welcome, Doc. I will be in contact with you and your people, and I will get this video. This video should be available later today, so I'll send it to you guys later today. And then the podcast version will not be available for probably 2 to 3 months. And will that link that you created, will that be available in a couple months when the podcast comes out?
It will be. Yeah, we'll keep that up for you. Yes.
Okay, cool. Well, Doc, this was awesome. I really resonate with everything you're saying, and I'm just really in tune with your work, and I appreciate your time, and sorry for the tech issues at the beginning, but we worked them out, so I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you very much. It was a great interview, and I'm glad we got here. I wasn't sure we were going to make it, but I'm really glad we did it. So thank you very much, and being a great interviewer.
Thank you so much, and I will possibly come and see you at the Conscious Life Expo. I'd like to make it up there, so that would be great.
Okay, I would love to see you, and if you come, maybe I'll give you a reading as one of your people requested out there. I'm happy to do that.
That'd be great. That'd be great, Doc. Well, if I don't see you, have a great time down there in LA, and again, I appreciate your time today.
Okay, thanks, Justin. Take care of yourself.
Okay, thanks, Doctor. Okay, bye-bye.
Okay. Bye now.
All right, well, there you go, my friends. I wanted to say Russell Jaffe, but it's not Russell Jaffe. It is Dr. Ibrahim Jaffe. So I had a little bit of an issue. I thought it was Russell Jaffe, so I prepared for the wrong guy before the show today. I had the image up on YouTube, so I'm going to have to change all that. But I apologize for that, guys, if you guys were thinking it was going to be Dr. Russell Jaffe. But you know what? Here's the thing when it comes to all this stuff. I really do think that everything is meant for a purpose, and there was a reason why we're supposed to have him on, because I really, really resonated with his work. I don't know about you guys, but I think that his work is really, really critical, and it's in a reductionist, scientific sort of way, or sort of mindset that we all have within ourselves right now in this weird, bizarre culture where we're looking for scientism to save us. I think bringing what he's talking about to the fold and to your consciousness is going to be a huge part of stacking the odds in your favor if you want to overcome any kind of disease. And, you know, there's lots of different things that you can do and employ when searching for something that's going to give you a little bit more, I guess, power to overcome something you have going on, right? So like we mentioned before, that a lot of times people think purely on the physical level, like what herb maps to what condition, and what milligrams do I take, and what dosage do I take of a certain herb, and will that heal me? And whenever you do that, you're sort of giving your power away to the herb, right? So if you find the herb and it does something to you, then you think that you have no power in your body to heal, but the herb is going to do all the healing for you. And so I think that part of what we're here to do in this culture now is to simply understand that the power to heal is within us. God has imbued all of that into our bodies, and we need to get rid of the stumbling blocks that are preventing us from seeing that true power that lies within us. And healing is ours if we want it. And so, like he was saying with his wife, you know, she didn't want it. And so there's nothing against that, nothing wrong with that or anything like that. You know, everyone has their own journey. But I hope you guys enjoyed that show. I'm going to do a little spot for a couple of our products. But after that, I want to share with you guys a couple things that are going on A friend of ours, Brian Hoyer, who's been on the show, is now traveling starting February, March, April, and May to 6 cities. And if you live in the sort of outlying areas, he can come out to your home and assess the amount of EMF protection that your home needs. And we recently had him come to our house to do this. And I want to share with you guys a little bit about where he's going to be and what the dates and times are, and also give you a discount too, because last night he sent me a discount to let you guys know that if you guys want a discount, you can definitely get that. So I'll share with that after a second there. But I wanted to share with you guys too, we talked about the Magnetico and the sauna, and you guys were talking about that in the chat room. But one of the other things I wanted to tell you guys about, there's two other really cool products, and we use products in our store that we actually use. So this one here, the Rapid Release Technology Pro, we haven't talked about it in a while. And so I've realized that you guys can't even see what I'm talking about here. Would be nice if you guys could see it. This thing is, it's a device that uses high frequency, vibrational frequency, high speed vibration therapy, they call it. And chiropractors are using this now too. But here's the thing. This is a device that you put on your body in different areas, and it helps speed stimulation. It helps to bring more circulation, some more microcirculation, and using vibrational therapy to do that. And I had a back problem. I don't know if you guys know this, but a couple years ago, I'd say about 3 or 4 years ago, I was in the gym and I was doing a workout and I got lazy, right? My first problem was I was in the gym under blue light. So that's number one problem. That lowered my redox potential. That screwed up my mitochondria. I didn't know it at the time, right? But I was just in the gym with, just working out, and I got lazy. So I was doing the bent over rows. So that's where you have the big long barbell that guys use to do bench press with, right? But it's sitting on the ground. And so I put 2 45-pound weights on each side, and I was doing bent over rows where you sort of lean forward and stick your butt out, and your torso is supposed to be parallel to the ground, right? But I was lazy, so what I did is I took the bar off the bench press and I put it onto the little pad that you lay down on. So the bar is about 2 feet off the ground, and that was my starting point. And what happened was I realized I was in over my head on the 3rd or 4th rep, but I said, you know what? I'm only going to do 5 reps. I'm not going to do 10. I'll put it back down, and then I'll put it on the ground and re-rack it and start from the beginning so I don't compromise my back being in a 3/4 position. Well, as luck would have it, on the 5th rep, my back just exploded. It literally, I've never felt anything like this in my whole life. It just exploded. I don't know what happened. I have a feeling that maybe I damaged some vertebrae, or maybe I damaged some discs or something, because it just got warm. It got hot. It felt like my whole lower back separated, and then all of a sudden my muscles just started seizing up on it. And it was painful, but the worst part about it was I couldn't walk. And so this happened. I re-injured it a few years after that, and this time it was really serious. I couldn't walk. After about 7 days, it was worse than when I re-injured it, and I couldn't get out of bed. It took me about an hour to get out of bed into the next room. Kate would help me walk. I could shuffle my feet. I couldn't even put my arm in front of my body, because the weight of my arm in front of my body would put pressure on my back. I couldn't put shorts on. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't even get into a position where if I wanted to call an ambulance, where I could lay down. I couldn't move. I couldn't sit. I couldn't stand. I couldn't walk. It was so painful. And so after about 7 days, when you have nerve injuries like this, what happens is that it starts affecting your emotions and deep spiritual issues. And I was crying. I thought I'd never walk again. And Kate knew of a lady who had one of these rapid release technologies. This is the Pro 2 that she used. And I'm telling you, she did a session with me. I was afraid for her to even touch my back because I was in so much pain. But there's if I do on our Instagram, this is the lady right there. You can probably see it. You can see I'm standing there holding the little ledge in front of me, and she's using that there, and I could not walk. Man, I was in so much pain, and she used this on me, and I'm telling you, this thing reversed. It was incredible, the turnaround. There's a little video of Terry Bradshaw, the former NFL guy, doing a 4-minute documentary on this thing on our store if you guys want to watch it. But yoga teachers are using it, chiropractors are using it. I use it over my whole body every single day. I use it over my liver, my thyroid. I do it on the back of my head where the medulla oblongata is, where they say the soul connects to the body through the back of the head there. I use it over my joints. I use it on my face to stimulate the muscles in my face so that, as you age, the muscles in your face deteriorate because there's no real way to stimulate those muscles. And so I use this thing in a really different way than what's it's marketed as. It's marketed as more of a tool to help, muscles, sore muscles and stuff like that. Just the other day, I was using it when I was doing deadlifts. So after every set of deadlifts for my lower back, I was doing a set of this, and that reduces the pain and all that. Lactic acid. It's really great for stimulation, circulation, blood flow, bringing oxygen to certain tissues and areas. It's just a tremendously awesome tool, and your own creativity is what is going to allow you to use this in weird and unique ways. So if you guys are interested in the rapid release, check this thing out. I'm telling you guys, you will absolutely love it. And they're actually doing a special. I just found out before the show. I don't have this one here, which is the cordless Juvenate, I think they call it. But they have these in different colors now. They're kind of really coming up with different things. But I'm telling you guys, consider getting one of these things just for maintenance. And then if any acute injury happens in your life, you have this thing at home. And I'm telling you, it is just a tremendous tool to have. And then the other thing I wanted to tell you guys about too was a lot of people have been writing in asking us like, hey, what water filter do you use? Like, what do you use to filter your water? And we've gone through a lot of different iterations of the type of water that we drink, and we're always searching because water itself is always flowing. It's always changing, right? So are our ideas about water and the best water to drink. For a while there, we're getting spring water from a spring out near Palm Springs. Recently, I think it's dried up. Then we started getting well water, and then we moved from that when we found out we were going to have kids, realized we can't go get well water and drive an hour and a half to go get well water. We're going to have to come up with a system. So we settled on the Omega Organics 12-stage reverse osmosis water filtration system. This thing's awesome. It's actually beyond reverse osmosis because what they do on the output is they help to remineralize the water. So it's super, super low TDS, and these cartridges, you only need to replace them like once a year. And it's a completely enclosed system, so no mold grows in there. It is amazing, and check this out. So if you guys are watching on YouTube, I did a little search the other day of what water. We live in San Juan Capistrano in South Orange County here in California, and I was looking on ewg.org, and you guys can plug this in to your area as well. You can just pop in your zip code, and you can do the tap water database. And check this out. So it says here there's 10 contaminants that are found in our water filtration or our water. That's so this one is bromodichloroethamine, and it's related to cancer. It says here one of the total trihalothamines, I can't even say it, is formed when chlorine or other disinfectants are used to treat drinking water. So this is related to cancer, guys. And it says here in our thing 4.38 parts per billion, all the way up to 7.41 parts per billion. That's in our drinking water. This is just what's in our drinking water. Bromoform, related to cancer. Chloroform, related to cancer. Chromium, related to cancer. Dibromochloroethamine, related to cancer. Dichloroacetic acid, cancer. Perfluorinated chemicals, harmful to the immune system and changes in mammary gland development. Radiological contaminants, cancer. Total triethylamines, I can't even say it, cancer. So all of these things, and that's not counting the homeopathic residues of chemotherapy, fluoride. There's all kinds of stuff in your water. So what the Omega does, what's really cool is let me go back to it here. You can see it's a really awesome reverse osmosis filter, and it helps get rid of all of the above, as well as aluminum, antimony, cadmium, chlorine, chromium, copper, lead, mercury, lowers TDS, arsenic, antimony, as well as things like bacteria, dirt, odors, protozoa, rust, viruses, radium, pharmaceuticals, things like that that are going to be in all tap water. And so this is really a great thing, and I really, really highly recommend it. It helps in the removal of 99.9% of gross alpha and gross beta radiation. And then we put that through our Berkey system. So it's a really cool system we have. And I highly recommend filtering your water, guys. Make sure that the water that you're drinking, whatever filter you get, just do your research. We like this one. We've gotten to know Rafi, who's the owner of Omica, is a great guy. And they're going to give, I forgot about this, there's a 10% discount. Okay, so yeah, if you want a 10% discount on this Omica, email me and I'll give you a coupon code. I forgot what that is. For some reason, we can't put it on the website. But I'm telling you guys, we use their water filters or their shower filters. So we have a whole house water filtration system at point of entry, and then on our showers we have another filter, and then that filters as well. And so that way we're not breathing this stuff into our system. And whenever we take a shower, guys, or whenever we bathe in water, you're absorbing a lot more water into your system than you would just by drinking water, because of so much. Your skin is your largest organ, and it's going to uptake all of these compounds that I was just describing. So make sure whatever filter you get, make sure that you get a filter so that you don't become the filter. And over time, what happens is our livers get clogged up, our blood gets dirty, you get lactic acidosis in your blood, all kinds of health conditions arise from drinking water with all of these chemicals in it. So I just wanted to tell you guys about that. That's the 12-stage RO water system, and that is on our show page. So if you're watching on YouTube right now, you can check them out in the description below. Email me for a 10% discount code, and I'll send that over to you. We also like, Omica has a ton of other products too that we really like and use. So you'll get 10% off everything, I believe. And then if you're interested in the rapid release, the Magnetico or the sauna, if you're watching on YouTube, the links are down below. If you're listening on a podcast, all of these will be available at extremehealthradio.com/652. All you got to remember is 652. extremehealthradio.com/652. All right, guys, so I wanted to tell you guys about a couple things that are coming up. So I was mentioning before Brian Hoyer, who's been on our show. He's a building biologist, and I'm going to mention the cities here that he's going to be in, starting February 7th, going all the way to May 13th. So if you live near these cities, you don't have to actually live in the city, but he'll work with you. He came to us. He was doing some things in LA, and we're about an hour south of LA. So you just connect with him, and he may come to you if you live outside of any one of these cities. So here we go. Portland, Oregon, February 7th through the 12th, and March 4th through the 8th. Seattle, Washington. Looks like he's going back and forth. So Seattle, Washington, March 9th through March 13th, 2019. Atlanta, Georgia, March 25th through April 1st, 2019. Austin, Texas. We just got back from Texas, and our biological dentist, Dr. Stuart Nunley, who I highly recommend. There's a link to him on the right side of our website if you guys are looking for biological dentist par excellence. He's awesome. So Austin, Texas, April 29th, to May 3rd, 2019. Dallas, Texas, May 4th through May 9th, 2019. And Houston, Texas, May 10th through May 13th, 2019. So make sure to check this link out. Let me pop this into the chat room, guys, so that I'll put it in the description if you're watching a replay of this YouTube video below. Let me pop this in, because I'm telling you guys, like, he came to our house and he spent about, I think the normal tour is about 4 hours of him being in your home. And he spent about 3 hours with us just because we wanted him to go. It was getting late that night. But he'll send you a whole assessment, and he'll go through your entire home and tell you where the problems lie. And he'll give you a whole protocol on how to fix these things as well. Oh, wow, look at that. Angie, I was going to mention this. I totally forgot. Angie donated $2 on Super Chat. Dude, that's our first Super Chat, Angie. I keep forgetting to mention this. Thank you so much. Ah, that is so cool. So for those that don't know, Super Chat, if you're on YouTube watching live, is a little way that you can donate. If you like our show, if you like our work, like what we're doing out there in the world, there's a little dollar sign below the chat room, and I'm not sure what it looks like on a mobile phone, but you can click on it and you can donate, $1, $2. I think it goes all the way up to like $500 or something. But Angie's our first super chat, and I keep forgetting to mention that we turned that on recently in case you guys want to support us in the live shows. So we really appreciate that, Angie. Thank you so much. That's so cool. Really, really, really appreciate that. So, yes. So if you guys want to get Brian Hoyer to come to your home, I'm telling you guys, the next big wave of environmental health issues, I think, in my opinion, from everything I've listened to, everything I've researched, the guests we've had on our show, is this whole 5G change in environment. I think it's going to be massive. I think it's going to really cause a lot of health issues. And for some reason, we've manifested a lifetime where we're living with something called 5G now. And so with all of the assaults to our health, there's always answers. And like I forget who mentioned earlier with the issue in their body from the MRI contrast earlier in the show. When you keep searching, you're going to keep finding an answer. So Brian Hoyer, I'm telling you guys, is an amazing guy, super, super knowledgeable. And I would highly recommend having him come out to see your home. Like I mentioned, he came to our house and we filmed a bunch of it. I'm still trying to work out how to get those videos off of. I got an iPhone. I don't use it for a phone. There's no phone on it, but we use it for video, and that's how we do our Instagram. But I've got all these videos of him doing really cool readings in our home that will eventually make it onto YouTube. So I'm telling you guys, this is huge. This is absolutely huge and incredible for your health. And if there's one thing that you can do is to optimize your environment, because like the age-old saying goes, if a fish is sick, you don't look at the diet it's eating, you look at what environment it's living in, the water it's bathing in, the water it's living in, right? So if you're sick, that's your body's response to the environment. It's an intelligent response of your body to the environment in which you live. And there's nothing wrong with your body. It's just that you need to improve your environment. And one of the ways to do that, one of the best ways to do that, is fixing the EMF radiation from your home. And we have a few of Brian's products in our store, which is really cool, and we're really excited about that. He's got the Zero EMF Desk Therapy Light, which is a red light that uses near-infrared light to put on your body when you're working at your desk all day. And so this is what's super important. We spend 98% of our time indoors. Unfortunately, that's the average of our culture. And so if you're living in a house that's literally vibrating, and like if you were able to see the magnetic and electric currents in the walls, it would look like it would just be like zzz, it would just constantly be doing that all the time. And you're living in a box like that. That's not counting any wireless radiation from your neighbors or 5G cell towers that are in your area. So we're living and bathing in this weird environment that's causing our cells to open up the calcium ion channels and allowing 1,000 times, according to Dr. Martin Pall, 1,000 times more calcium to enter into the cell than should be in the cell. And so the calcium, according to him, is supposed to be in the serum of your blood, not getting into the center of the cell. And he's surmised in his research that there's over 150 different disease processes that happen as a result of this influx of calcification of calcium getting inside the cell. So it's really important, my friends, to make sure that your home is a sacred sanctuary. And so that's my plug for Brian. And I think he's giving you guys a 10% discount too. But it's so worth it, guys. Just know, though, it's a little bit pricey. I think it's about $1,000 to do your whole house. And that, if you have a 6-7 bedroom house, obviously it's going to be more. I'm not sure if he does it on square footage or what, but and then to go through, that's the assessment part. We haven't still gone through and fixed, taken all his advice and fixed everything yet, because we're still saving up for that. But that's part of the deal, is figuring out where the issues lie and then going through and then fixing it. It's a costly thing, guys, but so is going to the health food store and buying all this healthy food that we eat, right? This stuff costs money, and I invite you to to start looking into and saving for something like this. If you have a home that you really enjoy and you want to stay in, and you have kids, make sure to start looking into this. And it's extremehealthradio.com/EMF tour, EMF Home Tour, and I'll put it at extremehealthradio.com/652. Looking over at the chat room. No way, Eric, dude. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate that. Eric donated $5 on the super chat. Thank you guys. Man, oh man, you guys are so cool. You guys are awesome. You guys are so, so cool. Chris says, great show, Justin. I appreciate that. Tara says, great talk. Thank you, Justin and Dr. Jaffe. Is it Dr. Jaff or Dr. Jaffe? Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed that a lot. And one of the things that I kind of took from that episode was this idea that our souls are, what did he say? Was it 2 miles in the radius? Which really interesting. It kind of makes you think, right, twice about like how much is it for, how much does it affect us to live in such a heavily dense and populated area? Dr. Cruz was saying years ago that one of the things and one of the issues with human population now is population density. And he was saying that like the average American has around 6 to 7 bidirectional wireless radiation devices from their iPhones, iPads, laptops, these types of things, their Fitbits, right? All this stuff emits wireless radiation. And the average American has about 5 or 6 to 7 on average of these things that are emitting and transmitting data. And so he talks about population density and changing the actual environment we're living in, which kind of brings me to Dr. Jaffe, too, if all of that is affecting our environment. And then if other people's negativity or their souls are overlapping with ours in our environment, then you got even more psycho-spiritual issues happening on top of the EMF issue, right? So crazy. So the other thing I wanted to tell you guys too about, I got an email from our good friend Brandon Amalani from Blueshield, and we sell their products in our store. In fact, I think I have one of his products here. I have his little, you guys can probably see this Blueshield device here. You guys can see on YouTube. You can probably see it. I keep this with me everywhere I go. This was just in my pocket for creating a scalar energy shielding for wireless radiation. So what it does, it doesn't block EMF, but what it does is it harmonizes it. And so my understanding is that part of what it does is it brings these frequencies using scalar energy into a more bioharmonic way of allowing our bodies to not see it as a threat, but it actually brings the waves that are sort of more scattered coming from EMF and wireless and things like that into a more harmonizing parallel sort of frequency so that your body recognizes it. And this thing, the Blueshield has like $3 million in testing they've done on rats, on rabbits. They've done third-party testing. It's pretty awesome technology. It uses a microprocessor and it emits a frequency every, I think, 20 to 30 seconds that changes based on where you are. It's pretty interesting science, and we're going to have him back on the show. But anyway, he is having a sale, which is cool. So if you guys want to check out, go to our store, and if you go to Blueshield, the Blueshield products there's another discount that he's giving. So it's going to be, we're offering a 10% discount if you use our code, I think, if you go through our link on our store. And then this one is one that says SAVE 10, SAVE 10, all caps, no spaces. And that can be used in combination with my discount code. So it'll allow you guys to get 20% off your order. And this is going to be, he says, effective from January 29th, 2019 to February 3rd, 2019. So what I'll do is on the store page, I'll put that extra coupon code there so that you can enter that in, go through our store, click on the link in the store, and then put in SAVE 10. That will give you 20% off. So I just want to let you guys know about that. Don't mean to plug all these things, but just want to let you guys know of options and things that are happening in real time if you guys are interested in getting some of that stuff. So I'm curious. So I'm going to head out in just a second, but I wanted to get your thoughts on Dr. Jaffe. Like, what were some of the things that he mentioned in today's show that was a takeaway for you? I'm curious, or that was interesting or fascinating, or maybe something you agreed with or didn't agree with. Angie says here, And you said, oh yeah, I never thought about breathing crap in during a shower. Yeah, so when you're in a shower, you're creating like a chloroform gas almost because of the heat and the steam. And what it does is it hyper concentrates whatever chemicals are in the water. So if you got like high amounts of chlorine, or if you got high amounts of fluoride in your water, it's hyper concentrating that into a mist, and then you're breathing that into your lungs. So it's not good, guys. I should say it's less than great, right? I should change our language. It's less than great. So that's why it's really important to filter the water. You know, we like that Omica, but just get a water filter somewhere. Start with something, and then move up or move on from there, right? It's all progressive thing, right? And I really don't think that there is any one optimal thing that you can do. Like, there's not the one best water filter. There's not the one best blender. They all do different things, and they all help the body in different ways, right? So don't think also that you're not going to be healthy if you don't have Brian come to your house or you don't filter your water. You know, part of the work that we do and the work that we promote are people like Dr. Jaffe teaching us that we can become powerful spiritual beings who can overcome all of this stuff. Like, it's possible. It's possible to live right underneath a cell tower and never be affected by it. I really do think that's possible. It's all in having a conviction and a character and being connected to your work. It's, you know, I really do think it's possible. Is it likely? No. Is it probable? No. Is it ideal? No. But if you have a strong sense of your spiritual walk and your spiritual path, and you're connected to others, to yourself, to God, and you understand what's going on, then I think it's more than possible to live in an incredibly dangerous and toxic environment and be totally fine. And there's a lot of people that engage in really toxic lifestyles, right, that live a long time. So, health isn't just the food you eat. It's the type of work that you're doing. It's your connection to God. It's your connection to yourself. It's do you feel connected to other people? Do you feel love in your life? Do you have love in your life? Do you receive love in your life? Do you give love in your life? Are you connected to your purpose? Are you doing the work in the world that you're supposed to be doing? Are you eating clean? That's part of health, right? Our diet. Are you doing all the things, you know, that you should be doing, like detoxification and cleansing and all that kind of stuff? There's so many elements to health that I don't want you to think that you need a rapid release, or you need to sleep on the Magnetico, or you need to sweat in the sauna in order to be healthy. You don't. They definitely help a lot, and they speed up the process of cleansing and detox, but you don't need these things. I never want you guys to think that, you know, you feel somehow less than. You know, if you don't have any money, if there's no money in your life right now for these things, then I would just recommend sitting outside in the sun with a nice glass of water, doing some meditation in the sun and really connecting to who you are, and praying to God and reading a sacred spiritual text. And I think all of these things are way better than anything that you can do on a physical level. We like promoting things, you know, on every level. And that's why we have the Qigong course. We have the awesome, amazing Qigong course that it's a spiritual meditation. It's a moving meditation that's available in our store. But we promote all kinds of ways to get to healing, right? So it's not like, oh, you don't have a certain device, so you're not going to be healthy. I just want to make sure that that's clear. That's bad sort of business. I should tell you that unless you have these devices, you're never going to be healthy and all this. And I just don't believe that. And I have to be honest with you guys. You know, they definitely help, but they're not necessary. But with that said, even though they're not necessary, I have all these things I'm talking about. So I really enjoy using them and stuff like that. Jennifer says, Dr. Jaffe is great. Keep your vibration high. Yes. Eric, thank you again so much for that super chat, man. I really appreciate that. It's so cool. This is the first time I've ever talked about it and opened that up. So if you guys are listening on YouTube or watching on YouTube, you can donate on super chat. It's pretty cool. Let's see. Simply Me Laura says, Justin, what work you have done or doing emotional, spiritual, and psychologically healthy? So a lot of the work that I've done has come from silence and meditation and exploring other texts and reading other texts and really sitting with that and thinking and contemplating that and trying to develop a connection. If you listen to the show that we did with Mark Gober, I'd recommend that one. He's a really great guy, and that was like a couple weeks ago, maybe a week ago in our YouTube feed. This is, for those that listen on on iTunes. Like this happens all the time, where I'll listen to a podcast on iTunes and the host doesn't mention the year that they're in. So I'm like, this is a 2-year-old podcast, but I want to get to the content he's talking about. So the show that we did with Mark Gober, and this had to have been, let's see, what is this, January 2019. So it's probably early January of 2019 that we did on our YouTube channel. And he talks a lot about, in that show, we talked a lot about this idea of separating ourselves from who we think we are. And that's the name of the game, is separating yourself from who you think you are, from your thoughts, from your opinions, from your desires, from your language, from your ideas, from those in your life, from your body, from your skin color, from your career, constantly separating yourself and understanding that you are a soul, that you're a spirit. And reading books and doing meditation and going within is going to help you tremendously in this pursuit of separating yourself like that, so that you can be, from a spiritual perspective and a cleansing and detox perspective, you're very light, right? So there's not a lot of attachment to your body, and so your body doesn't have to go through physical traumas in order to teach you a lesson, because you're constantly learning that in your daily life. And so Angie says here, let's see, Sheila says, you guys are cool, man. Sheila says, what water has special properties. It responds to praise and to thanks. Yeah, Sheila, I agree. That's why we have, that's why we have that structuring device in our store through Ken Rolla's website, where you can structure the water and then you can imprint it. It does carry and hold memory for sure. And I agree. And you can use water to your benefit. A lot of people, weird trick. Imagine being a child in school and doing this. So they're like, here's a little study hack that you can do if you're really if you're in high school or something, and you're interested in all this kind of stuff, but you want to take your studies to the next level, and you really want to retain information for a test coming up. Read the text, speed read a book if you can. Just go over it, speed read it, get as much information about it, and then read it as much as you can, right? Whatever book you're studying, and then get a glass of water and put that water on your book overnight, the night before your test. And then when you take the test, take that water with you and drink it while you're taking the test. And then after you, excuse me, a little frog in my throat. And after you read the book that night and study it and put the glass of water on it and you go to bed, learn how to, what's that called? Lucid dreaming. So I knew a number of people that would lucid dream, and they would reread a book in their sleep while they were sleeping through something called lucid dreaming. So if you're a studier and you have a lot of tests, a couple of those things might be kind of cool, along with taking herbs that help boost memory, nootropics and things like that. Angie says, let's see here. I like his overall accepting attitude towards different ways to heal or just to avoid big problems. But like Eric reiterated, if you have an aneurysm and can't get to the hospital, go. True. Yeah. I like his holistic approach too. He is a medical doctor. Eric says, Justin, have you given any more info than I can ever fully Justin, you have given me more info than I can ever fully consume and really understand fully. But with the passing of my dad a week ago, oh man, my interest in alternative healing is only growing. Wow, Eric, I am so sorry. I'm sorry to hear that, friend. That's a powerful experience. Jeez. I'm fortunate and blessed to have both my parents still here. And like I mentioned during the show, the whole reason why I got into this was my mom's cancer in 95 that just rocked our family. And I'm just like you. And so, who knows, maybe you're going to get into this field as well, Eric, and start your own podcast and help thousands of people around the world. We need more people out there sharing the truth. Nikki says, our wealth of experience either decomposes in self-judgment or flowers in self-love. Thank you, Justin. Great show. I love that. Nikki, you always come in with such deep, it's like, you ever remember a really funny clip from SNL from Saturday Night Live in the 90s? Deep Thoughts with Jack Handy. Phil Hartman played it. It was super funny. But I always feel like that. Our wealth of experience either decomposes in self-judgment, or flowers in self-love. That is true. Sheila says, my condolences, Eric. I'm sorry, Eric. That must be so hard for you right now, man. Sheila says, awesome idea about studying with water. Yeah. Water definitely carries memory. And there's also things going on with computer chips and water, and they're going to be storing memory of computers into droplets of water. They've already started doing that. It's just crazy. Yeah, so you guys are awesome. Thank you guys for joining us on this show. We're going to have another show on Wednesday. We're going to talk with, let me bring him up real quick here. Neil Miller, is he a doctor? A lot of these people I choose, for our show. I add them to a list, and I have someone that reaches out to them. But a lot of times I forget his work, and but somehow I think I must have listened to a show with him or read his book or something. Neil Miller, vaccines, are they safe and effective? So if you guys have any, people in your life that, like older folks that are maybe considering a flu shot, or kids, in our forums recently in the Extreme Health Academy, we had someone who was asking a question. My heart just goes out to people because they were asking about their daughter starting an adult respiratory recovery program or something, and it's like a program for healthcare workers in the medical system to teach people about respiratory illnesses and how to recover from respiratory illnesses using their techniques. And because it's a medical thing, this person was asking. This is their daughter, and this person was asking, what can a person do to mitigate the effects, because they're requiring his daughter to get fully vaccinated and show proof and all this stuff. So I was sharing some ideas with him about things that you can do to take before and after a vaccine that will dramatically lower the chances of anything happening with the result of that vaccine. So I shared a bunch of resources in our forums inside the Extreme Health Academy. So if that interests you, you might want to, if you're a member of the Extreme Health Academy, you might want to check that out. But lots of really, really interesting topics and conversations going on in there. So let's see. I'm going to head out here in just a second. I've been fasting since about 7 o'clock last night. Eric says, thank you, everybody. Eric, dude, thank you again. And let me know if I could help with anything with your dad. I was listening to something a while ago. There's a documentary called A Family Undertaking. And it was all about this family in Texas, I believe, that actually took control over, kind of like how we do as parents, with our kids. We take control over their health and don't outsource their sickness or illness or lack thereof of health to some kind of vaccine, right? So we do our best to preempt that. But this family undertaking was doing the same thing with people dying and being able to have a spiritual ceremony with a person who dies and be able to have access to their body in their home, in their own home, and to anoint the body with oils. And, it's really, really fascinating. It's called A Family Undertaking. It might be on Netflix, but it might be on YouTube as well. Yeah, I mean, it's. I've heard some horror stories about what they do to bodies, when they cremate them or when they, put them under the ground. It's really disrespectful and it's really devastating. And, Tim says you could try supplementing an elderberry syrup every day. It's great for the lungs. Astaxanthin is good for asthma too, I believe. Yeah, you know what, Daryl, we did a show. If you want to email me, or if you want to scroll through our YouTube videos, I did a whole hour and a half show about not just asthma, but lung health. And I talked about all the different ways you can strengthen the lungs, you can cleanse the lungs. I think I even mentioned some spiritual, emotional aspects of what asthma really ties to from a recall healing perspective. And so I tie in all kinds of different therapies and modalities and herbs and things like that you can take for your lungs. So if you go to our YouTube channel and go under videos, you should see something from probably about 6 months ago that we did about lungs and lung health. So I recommend everything that I know about for lung health in that particular video. So check that out if you can. Tim Smith says, oh, chamomile. Okay, lemon balm tea is great for asthma. Great. Cool. Chamomile, lemon balm tea. Awesome. All right, guys. Well, I think I'm going to head out. I appreciate you guys being here. Come and join us on Wednesday at 10:45 to hear that episode with Neil Miller about vaccines. That'll be a lot of fun, right? And if you want any access to Dr. Jaffe's website, if you're listening on a podcast 3 or 4 months from now, the link again for this show is extremehealthradio.com/652. And I'll put all the links of everything we talked about there. And if you guys are watching live on YouTube, there's the links to the products and to the different things that we mentioned in today's show, as well as the guest website in the description below. So after the show's done, I'm curious, comment below. Let me know what your thoughts are and how we can help. If there's any guests that you would like us to have on, anything like that, let us know. And if you want to take your health even further, guys, join the Extreme Health Academy. I'm telling you guys, it's an awesome, amazing place. And, it's like this chat room here on steroids because we're all talking to one another, helping each other. It's just an amazing place. For $20 a month, I'm telling you guys, the resources, the live Q&As that we do every week just about, and the courses that are there on cancer, immune system, all that stuff is there, and I can't recommend it highly enough. So if you're interested in taking your health even further, check out the Extreme Health Academy. And down below, there's a coupon code for a free 14-day trial. So check that out if you guys are interested. All right, guys, we love you very, very much. On Friday, I don't think we're going to have a live show because it's going to be with Wayne Blakely. He's the guy behind the Living Streams probiotics that we have in our store. And I think that's going to be a non-live phone call-based conversation that we're going to have with him. And if that falls through, I'll come in and do a Free For All Friday show. And I got a lot of stuff I'd like to share as well. So love you guys very much. Thank you for your support. Make sure to follow us on Instagram, too, if you guys haven't done that yet. The Instagram link is down in the description on YouTube here down below, sharing a lot of what we do on a daily basis down on Instagram. Eric, thank you, man, so much for the super chat, for the $5 donation, and let me know if I can ever help with anything, man. My heart goes out to you, and I'm with you, friend. Thank you, Sheila. Thank you, Laverne, Tim, Eric, Daryl, Nikki, all you guys, Simply Med, Dale. You guys are awesome. Angie, so many great people in here. Thank you guys for joining us. We will catch you guys on the next episode, and we love you very, very much. And I'll see you Wednesday, 10:45. And love you guys. See you then. Bye-bye.
No material on this blog is intended to suggest that you should not seek professional medical care. Always work with qualified medical professionals, even if you educate yourself in the field of live food, nutrition, and alternative medicine. I'm not a doctor, nor am I offering readers medical advice of any kind. None of the information offered here should be interpreted as a diagnosis of any disease, nor an attempt to treat or prevent any disease or condition. While information in this blog is discussed in the context of numerous conditions, it can be dangerous to take action based on any information in this blog or to start any health program without first consulting a health professional. The content found here is for informational purposes only and is in no way intended as medical advice, as a substitute for medical counseling, or as a treatment/cure for any disease or health condition, and nor should it be continued as such. Always work with a qualified healthcare professional before making any changes to your diet, prescription drug use, lifestyle, or exercise activities. This information is provided as is, and the reader/viewer assumes all risks from the use, non-use, or misuse of this information.